Here we are. The beginning. This is the Hebrew word Barashit. Barashit in Hebrew means beginning. It's the very first word of the Bible. In our English Bible, it says in the beginning, but in Hebrew, in the is already, it's already spoken for. It's just supposed to be known. It's assumed. So scholars state that the Torah was given to Moses at Mount Sinai, which occurred around 1300 to 1500 BC. So around 1300 to 1500 years before Christ, Moses goes up to the top of Mount Sinai and receives the Torah. Whether he wrote it down up there or wrote it down later based on what God inspired into his heart is debatable, and people do debate about it. What is the Torah? The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible. Now you say, where is Mount Sinai? This is a map of Egypt to the left. We have modern day Israel there, Jordan, and then just below Jordan, you have the top part of Saudi Arabia, and that area is known as the Hejaz region. In the Hejaz region, you have this small area. Now, whenever Moses was leaving Egypt, they went right around this trajectory across the Reed Sea and into that area where the red square is. This is where Mount Sinai of Yahweh is. Look, even Google Maps knows where it's at. And just above that is Jebel El-Lawz. And then you also have Moses' altar down to the right. And then a little further over to the right, you have the golden calf altar. I'm not going to go into any of that in this Bible study. But in Mount Sinai of Yahweh, which is in that red square, this is where Moses was given the Torah. About 1,500 years approximately, in between 1,300 and 1,500 years, scholars say, on Mount Sinai, in what is now known as the Hejaz region of Saudi Arabia. First, let's discuss a little bit about the Hebrew language. The Hebrew language, it doesn't just start off as this eloquent, beautiful calligraphy pen style writing. It starts off in these archaic pictures. So on the chart here, you can see where it says ancient, paleo, and then all the way to the left, it says print. So this is how the language started. And the Aleph Bet is where pretty much the alphabet comes from. We'll go over a little more of that in a little bit. But the letters from beginning to end, they say Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zion, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pe, Sad, Kof, Resh, Shin, and Tav. I want to draw attention for purposes later to the first letter, which is Aleph. It has an ancient symbol of an ox head, which represents, over to the right, you can see the basic meaning of the letters. So not only do the letters have a shape that goes with it, or an old image, they also have phonetic values, which means it makes a sound like b, ka, d. But also, each letter tells a story. So it has a story of its own, and it has a meaning of its own. So the first letter, the meaning of it is the God, or the creator, or the first. Strength, leader, Lord, king, sovereign. And all of these are the separate meanings, but they also mean somewhat the same thing, and they also kind of tell a story all wrapped around in the meaning themselves. The last letter, I want to draw attention to the last letter, the Tav. If you look at the paleo, it's a little X. X marks the spot. And look over at the basic meaning. It's a cross, or a covenant, a truth, a sign of perfection, or just a sign, period, to show ownership or to seal something. And they still use it today. The X marks the spot for the gold where they hid it, or where something is hidden. They put the X, or the X at the bottom of a contract when you're going to sign it. It means the same thing. You're about to show ownership of something, or you're about to establish that something significant is occurring. Now, all of these letters have phonetic value. They have an ancient and a paleo symbol that goes with it. And just to run through a couple of them, like the symbol hey is a man standing like this. And what does it mean? It means behold, or to reveal something. Look, I'm revealing this to you. Or what comes from, look, this is coming from this, right? It can mean all of these things. Yod, about halfway down, you have the smallest mark. The Yod, which is a hand. You can kind of easily see it in the ancient symbol. It's like this. It's like a little arm with a 90-degree angle and his hand up. But in the print version of the Yod, look at the little, look. It's still a hand. It's just doing this. The little hand is like, it's like that, but it's still a hand. And they all have a meaning. So why is that significant about what we're going to talk about? Well, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it says, Barashit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, which means, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Or beginning created God, the beginning and the end of the heavens and the earth. But what is in here? There's actually something hidden in here. And it's not really even hidden. It's like right in your face, unless you know what to look for and where to look. Let's go 90 to 100 years after the death of Jesus, when something is circulating and something has been buzzing for about 30 to 40 years, compiled together of some other works that came before it. The gospel. So Gospel John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. That means before God said anything, the intention was inside the heart of God, or what should be known as the heart of God. That there was something there before there was something. So there can never be nothing. There can never be nothingness, because even without the creation, there is still the intention of God, and there is God, and the Word was with him before it was spoken into creation. So, but what is John talking about that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God? What Word was God? In the beginning. There it is again. Barashit. Barashit means beginning, or in the beginning. But what is in the beginning? John said the Word was in the beginning, and the Word was God. In the beginning. Okay? This is what it looks like in some of those paleo letters. Bet, which is a little house, or a dwelling place, or a tent. You can see the opening, and then the little triangle on top, because that's the covering of the tent. You go inside the tent. Resh, which is a symbol of a head. That's like an archaic neck with a little head on it, which means the head, or the first person, or the highest person, the head. Then you have Aleph, which means, this is the first letter, means strength, or the strength of God. And you can see that it's an ox head. You got the two horns going up, the two ears going out, and then the snout and the nose of the ox or the bull, whichever. Shin. This is the symbol of teeth. And the teeth mean to destroy, and it means destruction. Like when you're chewing on something, the gnashing of teeth. The Yod, which is a hand, meaning work or deeds, the works. And at the end of the word, we have the Tav, which makes the T sound, and it means a covenant, It means to establish something significant, to have ownership, to seal the deal. Here's the phonetic values. Barashit. And there it is in its beautiful print form, calligraphic print form. Barashit, beginning. So what is it saying? All right, let's pull the chart up again so that we can look and compare. I'll put Barashit over here to the left. I wrote it going vertical down so that we can plug the meaning in to each letter significantly. To in the beginning, what does it say? Well, Beit, the first letter of the Bible. Beit. It's not the first letter of the alphabet. It's the first letter of the Bible, which says temple, or the house, or the tabernacle, or the tent, the body, if you will, the dwelling place. Resh, which is the highest person, the head. Aleph, the first letter, which means God, the creator, or the first, the strength and the leader, the Lord, the king, the sovereign one. Shin, there's those teeth again. They don't look like teeth anymore. They look kind of beautiful now. You know, they're a little more interesting looking in the print form, but it means to destroy. A yod, which is the work and the deed. And the tav, which is a cross, crossed sticks in the ancient form, but it means a cross or a covenant or the truth of perfection. So in the word beginning, as we go down and we look at what is in the beginning, well, John 1 said that the Word was in the beginning and the Word was with God and the Word was God. Well, that's crazy because literally in the beginning here it says the temple's highest person of God and strength will destroy the work and the deed of the cross. And from what we know, the Messiah, the Christ, Yeshua, or Jesus, he was the temple's highest person of God that destroyed the work or the deeds of the cross. He defeated death. Or you could even say that the temple's highest person of God will be destroyed by the work of the cross for a covenant. Right there in the beginning. Okay, so we have the chart here to let us know. We wrote it vertically so that we can put it in order. We have the paleo symbols even to drive it home that the symbols are even telling the story almost without the meanings. And then we have something even significant in the print. Something even significant in the print, because if that's not driving it home enough, what does the word bar mean? Because this is barashit. The word bar, like as I've learned recently, bar mitzvah. It means the son of the law. So whenever you have a bar mitzvah, that's whenever you're becoming of age in the Jewish tradition, and now you're responsible for upholding the law that is in the Torah. And so what is the first two letters of the word beginning, barashit? What does it mean? Bar means son. And then the next letter, what is the next letter? If you've been paying attention, Zephaniah, you'll see that the first letter means God. So then we go on, and so we have shin, and trust me, there's other words that all add to this story right in the word beginning. I'm just going for the meat and potatoes. I'm going for the throat. Work and cross. So literally in the beginning, it tells you what this entire Torah is really leading you towards to understand is that the Son of God will be destroyed by the work of the hand on a cross at the end for a covenant. Or, like I said, you could also translate it to mean the Son of God will destroy the work of the cross because he defeated death, resurrected in 3 days, as we were told in the scripture and in the gospel. So if it wasn't enough that in the word beginning, that is there, and that's not reaching. We're not reaching for something. That's there. Here's the very beginning of the Aleph Bet. The very beginning, the first letter, the first, is the letter Aleph, which, if you remember, the ancient symbol is the bull or the ox head, which means the strength of God, or the first letter, God, you know? And I would assume that that is very closely related to the fact that a bull and an ox are some of the things that they were sacrificing. Also, the bull or the ox is what they use to till the ground. When you till the ground, it gives up its fruit to you. This is the power of God to do this. This is the work of God, right? So in the first letter of the Aleph Bet, in the print form, they've changed Aleph quite a bit. But there's still something amazing hidden in the beginning of the Aleph Bet. It's created by using two letters. The first letter, there's actually two of them there, one on top and one on bottom, is the Yod, which is a hand, which means work. You see the little hand up there? The little hand there? Or wait, which way is it? This way. Which way is it? That way. Yeah, the hand. You can see it, the hand. And it means the work. Next, in the middle, we've got the Vav, which can actually represent an upright man, but it's more specifically in the Paleo or the ancient letters, it's represented by a nail, which means to establish, to secure, to build. You know, Jesus told them, you could destroy that temple in 3 days and I'll just rebuild it. Or no, you could destroy that temple and I will just rebuild it in 3 days. He was establishing the fact that also, really quick, what is the Vav is the sixth letter of the Aleph Bet. And what is the number of a man? 6. Specifically the upright man, specifically the letter Vav. It's the symbol of a man. So now we have, what does it say? What is the first in the beginning of the Aleph Bet? What is this saying? The work of the hand through a nail, an upright man will establish the work below. In the beginning, in the very first letter. And this is the more advanced version of Hebrew. And it's not really in the Judaism way to promote Jesus, is it? They're not even about this. They don't believe that they're still waiting on the Messiah in their head. So if that's still not driving it home enough, let's go to the first letter in ancient form, right? The Aleph, which you could see the bull or the ox there again with his 2 horns going up, the 2 ears going out, and his little snout going down. But if you flip that around, it's our letter A, Aleph. That's where it came from. So Aleph is the first letter, which is the strength of God. And hopefully my little video over here isn't blocking it, but there's the last letter, which is the Tav. And that is represented by crossed sticks, meaning a sign and a covenant to establish. And so here we have the strength of God, the highest person of the temple, destroyed by the work of the hand on the cross. You have the first on the last. You have the first and the last of the Hebrew letters of the whole story that is being told there. And when Jesus was on the cross, it says that he said, it's finished. It is finished. What is finished? The whole story from the beginning to the end. Not only in the entire collection of letters that is being spoken throughout the Torah that was given to Moses on Mount Sinai, but also in the alphabet. It's finished. It's done. The beginning and the end. So what does Revelation 1:8 say? It says, I am the Aleph and the Tav. In some of your translations, it says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. But Jesus would not relate himself to a Greek religion or Greek mythology to say that he is the first and the last of some Greek story. He would say that I am the Aleph and the Tav. I'm the beginning and the end, says the Lord God, who is, who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Man, and all of that is in the beginning. What does the Gospel of John say? Now we're actually going to get into some Bible. Okay. So now we've walked all the way from the word Barashit, which means the beginning. And when we broke down the word Barashit, we figured out that each letter told a story, and it said that the Son of God will be destroyed by the work of the hand on the cross. Or it could also say that the Son of God will destroy the work of the hand on the cross, which means he's going to defeat death and that he will be resurrected. And that was given into the heart of Moses and written down somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 years before the Christ was even born. So I was telling you the story in the beginning. So the Gospel of John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I want to point out, too, that even in the Quran, chapter 3 is named Imran, because Imran is the family of Mary. But it confirms in that chapter that God sent down the Torah and the gospel. And the gospel. And in that chapter, it says that Jesus, the son of the Virgin Mary, is the Messiah, who will be killed, or at least it will be made to look like he was killed. And we're not talking about conspiracy when it says that. It's talking about the fact that it'll look like Jesus is dead, but Jesus is alive and that he will resurrect. Ain't no conspiracy that it's alluding to there. It's just talking about scientific fact of what is going to happen to the body of Jesus. Yeah, it might seem like he's dead, but he's alive and he will defeat death. So in the beginning, the Word was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jump down to verse 9 of that same book. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. More specifically, it's talking about the people of Israel. They didn't receive him. The Bible says that no prophet is received by his own people. Nothing new there. The children, yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, were given the right to become children of God. Children born not from a natural descent, nor of a human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. And the Word became flesh and made his dwelling. Remember, we talked about Bet. So the Aleph came to Bet, right? We're just going in order of the alphabet at this point to tell the story. The Word became flesh, and his dwelling, he made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory. And that word in some Bibles says Shekinah. We've seen him developed into flesh. The Shekinah glory. They saw it, you know? And the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. And that is the breakdown of Barashit. In the beginning, the Word was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I'm going to say, what do you mean the word was God? Well, first there has to be an intention. You have an intention inside of you before you say words. The word was with you before you said it. And whenever you say things, it will create a response or a reaction out of somebody, and it will go out and do some work. Oh, look at that. My meeting ends in 10 minutes. So I don't know how many people are on here right now, but you know what I'll do? I'll go back to the beginning real quick, and I'm just going to fly through it in the next 10 minutes. We'll go at 5. There it is, Barashit. It's in the beginning. Scholars state that the Torah was given to Moses at Mount Sinai, which occurred around 1300 to 1500 years before Christ. What is the Torah? The first 5 books of the Bible. Where's Mount Sinai? It's inside this red box up in the north part of Saudi Arabia, which is now known as the Hijaz. When Moses and them and the children of Israel left, they went across the Red Sea. They ended up there. Look, even Google knows where it's at. Like I said, Mount Sinai of Yahweh, Yod-He Vav-He. Yeah, we could even look in the letters to find out what Yod-He Vav-He means. Here's the breakdown. Here's the chart of all the letters of the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, of the print, and also all of the basic meanings of each letter. So you can look in there and you can find it out. What does Genesis chapter 1 say? Barashit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 90 to 100 years after Jesus is dead, John in the gospel said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Here's the beginning. There's Barashit. Let's break it down. Barashit. Barashit. Now let's break it down even into the story of what it's telling. There's the chart. There's the meanings. Here's the letters. Barashit. Going from top to bottom. Let's plug in the meaning, shall we? The temple's highest person of God and the strength will be destroyed by the hand in the work of the deed by the hand on the cross for a covenant. Barashit. Let's break down the word again to make it even more potent. Bar means son. Ah, the Aleph, God, destroyed. The work of the hand on the cross. Tav was a cross in ancient. That's where I'm getting that from. If you go back and plug in all the values, it makes more than sense. The Son of God will destroy the work of the cross. And if that's not enough, here is the beginning of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, which they use 2 different letters to break down this one letter. They use 2 different letters to kind of smash together to create this letter. And it was the Yod, which is represented by a hand, and it means to work. The other letter is a Vav, which is represented by a nail, which means to establish. And look, the very first letter of the alphabet says, the work of the hand above through a nail, and an upright man will establish the work below. You can't get away from it. I'm sorry. You're not going to be able to get away from it. Aleph, the first letter, is the strength of God. The last letter is the Tav, which means the cross, or crossed sticks, as the ancient symbols showed, and it means a covenant. What does that mean? Well, it means they put the first on the last. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, says the Lord God, who is, who was, and is to come, the Almighty. And that is in the beginning.